did you say you sent this to me too?
I did.
Okay.
Yep.
But that's not until a little bit later
sure.
anyway. We can't have everybody all distracted with trees while we're supposed to be focusing on the,
I was just too excited to share.
we already have these excited tree people that want to take over the world, Dave.
All right, you have to turn the page over, please. Yeah, so don't be distracted.
I mean, I'm really just kidding. It's great. We're gonna, let's make sure.
The distance around.
No, when's the plant, planted?
Excuse me?
When they're planted or?
When they're ordered.
Yeah.
That's the order size.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of gives you kind of an idea how big.
Okay, so we are live streaming now. Everybody got very quiet.
wish I had a place to plant a tree, but I don't. Too many shade trees in my yard as it is.
Too many shade trees?
I've got a lot of sugar maples running right along the front of my yard and shading the entire garden area.
Oh.
I would love to put up a horse chestnut. You know, when I was a kid, the Mechanic Street was lined with horse chestnut trees. And it was great in the fall when you were going to school because you could pick them up and being your chums with them.
I love those horse
Horse
chestnut
chestnuts,
trees.
yeah.
I tried to get one. Or do you have some on the list? Those are hard to get. Or did you find some with the white flowers or only the pink?
Red, they call them red.
Yeah, I can't. Well,
I don't know if
now
they-
you've got me on the tree.
I'm sorry, we're not supposed to be
thing.
talking about the tree list.
Where is this?
I just found myself getting like all worked up. Like, no, you have to get the white ones. Like, no, Allison, we're all gonna be.
About tree list, you never get to do.
I know. It's already happening to me.
I
So.
found out that we've all kind of came from trees, and this is why we feel we're emotionally attached to different types of trees.
Sure, yeah, you stand warm.
Yes, so we're all gonna commit ahead of time to reeling ourselves back in if we find ourselves getting too emotional about the tree things. And we all like each other and we're gonna like each other at the end too. Well, I'm not seeing heat. So
Did we say?
yeah. But
He sometimes sort of pops in.
yeah, that's great. I mean, there are several people who are really interested in and have done lots of reading and can't be with us today. So the idea is this is all live streamed and everybody can watch and comment later. And a lot of this is just figuring out an organizational structure that can work and, you know, which aspects. Maybe we should shut that door here. That would be great. Thanks, Nancy. You know, figuring out an organizational structure that will work and figuring out what, you know, what we can move forward with now and what might, you know, happen later. Obviously, the tree thing is the most immediate need. So we thought that was a good opportunity to, you know, get the Conservation Commission meeting again and figure out if sort of under that broad structure, there's a subgroup of people that are affiliated or loosely affiliated or somehow affiliated with the Conservation Commission in a way that works ideally for Dave, who's the sort of going to be the head of a lot of this, and also with a lot of the other Conservation Commission related things as well. So we've been doing a lot of mapping of the stormwater system, and now we're ready to move forward with mapping of the trees. And Dave has really spearheaded both of those things. And
Are those maps on the town website?
yeah, so as part of this, we'll go over just a little bit, you know, what's existing. You know, pull up this document here, and I'll share my screen for you, David. Let's see. I may have bitten off more than I can chew in terms of multitasking. where is that? Here we go. There's this, and then I'll go here. And I will share my screen. Okay, but actually what we were going to do first is just do introductions. So maybe I should stop sharing my screen for a second so that, can you see okay, David?
Yes, looks beautiful.
Okay, well, why don't we go, I guess we'll go ahead and do introductions just like this. Then I guess I'll start. I'm Allison McKellar. And I'm a select board member. I got my start in town government by joining the Conservation Commission in 2016. I had read some articles about poor water quality in Camden and specifically in Camden Harbor. And Camden Rockport had made the list once again of the most polluted beaches in the state of Maine or something like that. And out of the beaches that Maine Healthy Beaches tests. And I thought, oh my gosh, how can this be? This town that I grew up in that cares so much about water quality and everybody is an environmentalist. You know, how can that be? And so I talked to my friend Carrie, who worked for the Maine Healthy Beaches program at the time. She's with Maine Sea Grant now. And she kind of gave me a bunch of the background information and sent me some reports and said, you know, you should really, if you want to get involved, you could join your town conservation commission. So I put in an application, came down here, put in an application and never heard back. And then I think a while later, I heard about the Conservation Commission meeting and I started going to the meetings and they had just recruited somebody. They were talking about having trouble finding people. And I was like, you know, all indignant. I put in my application a long time ago and they were all excited. They had just recruited Vicky Dudera to fill the empty spot. And I said, I had my application in before her. And it had just been a clerical mix up or whatever. Roger Rittmaster, who was the chair at the time, said, I don't care who, I don't care about voting and not voting. I'll become a non-voting member if I need to. We can certainly have more people than 7 on the Conservation Commission. And so that was a nice attitude that kind of, that one little example is something that happens a lot in town government. I found that this like rigid structure that we have with the committees, it's been really good at times in terms of like a process that everybody can depend on or mostly depend on, but it also at times kind of excludes people because it's like, well, sorry, we already have 7 people on the Conservation Commission. I guess you can't do anything. I think, that's part of what we want to look at now is, as the model of sort of volunteerism has changed over the years, we in the town government are seeing people that really want to get involved, but not necessarily with, every aspect that a committee, a traditional committee may have taken on. You find people that are really passionate about water quality and oftentimes with really, a lot of expertise in something too. Looks like we have something here. But they might not want to sit through all, meeting after meeting talking about trees. And so they end up not what we're hearing a lot from people that like, I don't want to join a whole committee and have to do this and have to have every little thing recorded. And so we want to be able to figure out a way that we can allow people to get involved in kind of a task-based way, while also keeping the good parts of this sort of formal committee thing. So we don't have all the answers necessarily in terms of exactly how the structure will work, but the select board was supportive of having this group start meeting and then kind of circling back with the formal committee appointments and maybe a recommendation about different subgroups or perhaps even Conservation Commission ordinance changes that might need to happen. We do have a Conservation Commission ordinance. We have some references in the charter. There's stuff in the comprehensive plan. There's a lot of really good quality planning that's already gone on, but some of that might need to evolve. So everybody can continue to put in, applications for the commission, and also just kind of, maybe come to a few meetings, think about it, and we can all kind of think together about how things like, the tree initiative, the Conservation Commission, different other tasks might all kind of blend together. So that's my story. Dave, do you want to?
I'll introduce myself. My name is Dave St Laurent, and I'll stand up because it's easier. So I'm pretty excited about all this. We've been working behind the scenes trying to kind of bring this all together. And when I first started, it's a lot of just kind of feeling things out and trying to feel the vibe of the community and see what people want. But it was clear to me that, the town really supports this kind of endeavor, and it's something that most people
Can I
want.
make a suggestion? If nobody else minds, that you take your mask off, then I
Sure.
can hear you better.
I was going to take it off. Yeah.
Okay, no.
So, I was
Thank
trying to get the vibe of the community and understand what their expectations are and what people wanted. It was clear to me that there was a lot of support for this, and it was missing because we were doing a lot of tree cutting, but not a lot of tree planting. And from an environmental perspective, having a lot of shade trees is good for all kinds of reasons. You have the island effect that it helps with. It helps with stormwater management and provides shade, and it creates a nice ambiance in the neighborhood. There's all kinds of reasons why shade trees are nice. So we had some people that were interested in this and started trying to really promote it. In the background, Keith is one of them, and we all want to participate, but it's difficult because Public Works has never really been tree planting groups. We're not really the people that go out and plant trees, but we're taking on that role this year. We're making a commitment to plant 50 trees, which is a big undertaking, believe it or not, with everything else that we're doing. So don't have to plan them, but we need support and help with all of the different aspects of that. The watering, identifying where they need to go, talking to the people where they get planted, just educating the public in general about the benefit of having shade trees. And all of those things are tied into making this successful. And I need the support of the Conservation Commission and with some of those aspects of it. I don't need so much help with how to execute it or any of those kinds of things. I just need help doing it. And that's really where the benefit is going to be from it. If they can help with those, because I can't do it all. I can't identify every tree planting location, adjust the inventory that we just put in the GIS system to be accurate. That takes the help of volunteers, and that's why we need help. So whether it be a subgroup or however we structure all this, I don't quite know how it's all going to be, but the success of all this is going to depend a lot on the volunteers and the people over today to help me with that aspect of it. So I'll oversee the project and I'll oversee the spearheading of it. And I'm already excited about it. You don't have to talk me into planting more trees. You know what I mean? I'm going to do it. I just need your help to help me do it. So I think that's really the most important part of it. I know I try.
So that's just the tree part, but you also are gonna part of the other stuff too.
Oh, the inventorying and the electronic portion, you mean?
Well, the
GIS?
Conservation Commission, so we're trying to stick a little bit to the broader Conservation Commission part
Oh,
too. So,
not just trees, you mean?
right.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, because I was focused on trees. But I mean, the Conservation Commission encompasses all kinds of stuff, right? It encompasses all of the stormwater data that we put into the GIS system and ways of developing the stormwater system to make it more enhanced. The stormwater basically is a big way pollution enters our environment. And there's all kinds of components to making that work properly and understanding it. And that also takes the help of volunteers. So like the Conservation Commission is going to want to help with, developing practices that make sure that people are educated and understand what pollutants are associated with stormwater. How just understanding that adopting a catch basin in front of one person's location and making sure it's clean and free of debris and monitoring it can help with us to prevent pollution from entering the environment. they're understanding how those things that we do in terms of looking at those catch basins, stormwater systems and ditches, if they're maintained properly, will prevent flooding. You know, there's all kinds of different components that the Conservation Commission, their involvement is going to be helpful. I mean, developing all of those aspects of the town is going to make it all work better. Because you can't say, Public Works, you have to make all this happen. It's going to take the help of everybody in the community, and specifically the people that are more dedicated or taking a more involved role from the Conservation Commission. So you guys are going to come up with other ways of helping with that, but that's what we really need help with. So the
Hey,
stormwater.
Dave.
Yeah.
Hey, David Kibby here. I'm a newcomer and I've heard your name, but I don't know what you do. What could you just tell me what your position is at the town?
Sure. So I didn't start at the very beginning. So my name is Dave St Laurent. I'm the Public Works Director for the town of Camden. I'm also the tree warden. I'm the interim solid waste director or manager for Midco Solid Waste. I'm the road commissioner, and I'm the dam control agent in the future, I guess. So those are the functions I serve for the town.
We're really lucky to have.
I have an education, I have an environmental background, and I worked for 12 years for the town of the city of Rockland for Public Works and Solid Waste.
Great. You know, I think I emailed you a couple of weeks ago about the snowplow damage on Greenfield.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a lot of that happens every year.
I know. It was really bad this year, but my neighbor, the Ruckles, said you were really sensitive and interested in that. So I emailed.
Oh, I have a list.
Thanks for the introduction.
On it. Yeah, it's been a lot of rain this year.
Yeah.
Another reason why we need to pay attention to our catch basins, but it's hard to do that repair until things dry up a little bit. But I have a running list of all of the people that let me know that they have damage to their property, and we'll be picking away at that as soon as things dry up.
Thanks for the introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so subdivisions, that'll be a fun thing to talk about in the future too. You mentioned Greenfield, and so that's like a subdivision that has some stormwater issues. And one of the things that the Conservation Commission has historically done, or it has done in many other places, is advising the town, the planning board on areas where it's appropriate for more development or not appropriate for more development, where stormwater issues are, sort of looking at a more like comprehensive watershed level approach to things. So that is one area where we've been lacking, I think, as a town, having a dedicated group that can kind of help the planning board look, and the select board look at growth and management from a real like town-wide perspective.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because we do have stormwater management problems here. And one of the things that I've done on my property here has taken a lot of my time and energy has been water management, and to cut down on the amount of rainwater, surface rainwater erosion, and of course flow into the sewer system. But I'd love for that to be something that the town works on, because it as 2 or 3 more houses are getting built out here, it's just going to get worse.
I can show you examples of
yeah.
when it wasn't paid attention to all around town. The town gets gifted these subdivision
Roads.
and roads, and along with it is a stormwater system that wasn't designed properly and has no scheduled maintenance. And then we take the roads, and next thing you know, we're like, oh, you get the stormwater pond and everything that goes with it. That's just not been maintained. So
Where's the subdivision that he's talking about?
I don't know where his subdivision he's talking about. But
Linden Lane, Greenfield.
Oh, you're in the Greenfield subdivision?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, boy.
So yeah, so there's all kinds of them that need work. It's just part of what maybe we're going to need help with.
Yeah, and it's not just the town's responsibility either. I mean, it's the landowners, and I've been really actively involved on my own property, but not everybody is as involved.
I'll give you an example. I was at the Greenfield subdivision looking at someone that wanted to put a culvert in for a building, a property. And I went down to look where the water was gonna shed to, and the drainage pipe from that crosses the road is buried on one end. It's just an example of how,
Right.
having people that are active in the community and understanding how all this works can make sure that, you know, they don't bury the culvert for one, but at least, you know, look at these things and identify them and make it known that it needs to be repaired or fixed.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, all the water from there goes down, ultimately ends up crossing underneath Belmont Avenue and sometimes crossing over top of it. So anyway, that sounds like we already have an interested group here. Rebecca.
You want me to stand or
You can do whatever you want, just speak loudly.
I can speak plenty loudly. So my name is Rebecca Jacobs. I live here in Camden on Mountain Street. And I also wear another hat, which is my professional career is one, I work for the Knox-Lincoln Soil Water Conservation District. So I do education, outreach, and technical assistance for all Knox and Lincoln County towns. So Camden is by no means excluded from that. I just, you know, so I'm wearing kind of two hats, both as a resident and as a professional. And my college, you know, training, my formal training is in environmental design and planning. So I served on the Conservation Commission in the town I lived in back in Massachusetts for many years, and it has a very different, well, it has a obviously conservation related role, but we spent a lot of time because of the development pressure. The role of conservation commissions there is to uphold the Natural Resource Protection Act, and there's a lot of weight in those roles and positions, and so when you take them on, you don't do it by any means lightly. So so coming into a conservation commission here where you can have a little bit more free flow in subcommittees and work on water quality and, you know, soil quality and, you know, sort of different aspects, climate mitigation through street trees or Kibby enhancement, et cetera. It's kind of a nice broad sweep for a conservation commission. It seems to represent a bigger, you know, the bigger picture, unlike what we really had to do is focus all our energy in one area in my past from conservation commissions. So I'm here, like I said, wearing kind of two hats. I'm going to be ready, willing and able to jump in and assist with technical assistance and outreach and education to landowners at large here in the town and for trainings for staff at Public Works. I'm not a one person office. We are netted with many regional, state and federal people throughout Maine. So I can pool from my broad network, the right people to come in and look at specific projects or to train staff or to help guide through project, learning tree, like different programs or grants. So we can partner grant on something if that makes sense. But I live here, it's my backyard, so I'm definitely committed to conservation effort.
I'm just so excited to have you. I think we're so lucky to have you as a resident and being able to liaison with the conservation district as well. I'll reveal that my dream scenario would be to have the Conservation Commission develop into something that does have a little bit more teeth and plays a bigger role in the town. And I think we're going to need some outside expertise for that and some training. And I'm just really grateful that you're willing to help with that. And I think we can probably partner at some different levels in the town too. So
yeah,
thank
we've
you.
already started.
Yes, we
had
have.
two trainings. David and I met several months ago because municipalities are an area that I feel since I've been there has been a little bit underserved, not served at all, but just a little underserved in terms of the outreach and education for municipalities. So we've met and we've got a Stream Smart training, probably gonna meet right here in this very room because of the capacity for the online as well as in-person training. So it will be really great because it's gonna talk about a lot of conservation minded, a lot of, trying to undo some of that channeling and that huge velocity flow when you get those
Exactly.
culverts. So more open bottom culverts, appropriate small bridges, and other lots of other discussions to be had. So and then we'll do a sediment erosion control training here, which is an all-day intensive program in June, or I think it's in June or July. Yeah, so we got a lot of good things coming up that will be really support.
And we talked about a lot of other cool things, I think, that really fall into the group. the
Yeah,
conservation
absolutely.
commission.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep. So I'm again, I have the full board support and staff support. So, and we'll pull in my staff as needed. So.
Awesome, thank you.
That's great. My name is Pamela Gleason, and I also live here in Camden. I live over on Harrison Avenue. I've been here for about 12 years, although visiting here, long-term friends and families in Camden since about the mid-80s. Just love this town. My background is also in environmental design, but more of a landscape architecture focus, so much more design oriented. And I'm really interested in using native plants as much as possible for the street tree initiative that I've been working on with BB and all the other volunteers in that group. As well as even kind of looking at other ways to sort of use native plants in a green infrastructure sort of way, with bioswales, roadside habitats, particularly, as I said, in a design plant sort of focus is really
That's
my
great.
background.
That's really, we want to get into more of that too.
Yeah, and I'm really, just sort of here as another street tree initiative volunteer, I guess, and just really interested in getting to know the conservation committee and what you're all thinking about doing and in what ways that maybe we can, help as volunteers or support system for the community.
Would you be interested maybe in also being a member of the Conservation Commission?
I don't know. I thought
Sounds
about
like
it.
you might be a great fit.
I was gonna say,
I'm
I
not
thought you,
sure
I
if
was
I
gonna say, why are you kind of switching
What are
this?
my qualities? I've been on the budget committee.
I think you're,
Oh,
And honestly,
that's all
I
you
think
need.
the conservation committee is way more up my alley than the budget.
I really
committee.
think it is, just on what you said, yeah, it just sounds like it's right up your alley.
No, but we need conservation people on the budget committee too. That's important. That's been part of our problem in the past.
Yeah. Just
The select board too, but,
yeah.
well, that's, I mean, nobody has to commit right away, so,
It's really a learning.
Yes, it sounds like I learned a lot, which is fantastic.
I'm Beanie Parker, and I moved here, darn, in 1975, and I think I got on the Conservation Commission when it was just starting. I mean, started on all these maps, and then we kind of bagged it, and I was really jealous that Appleton finished the job.
We went up in there.
And
Hold on,
I
what
don't
is-
even
what
know
was
where
this?
those maps are.
maps.
Yeah, we were given all the conservation commissions, which were sort of founded by Toms of Maine, and they got legislation through and everything. Some towns don't even have them anymore, but they're supposed to. And the maps were basically a natural resource survey
Oh,
of,
okay.
water, vegetation, rock, both superficial and basal, base rock, and a whole list of maps, and we were working on them. We had lessons. Anyway,
Oh, that's
and
exactly
then
what
they
we're
got
trying to
put in
do.
base review. We were done, and people didn't even know they were there. I think we're supposed to use them to advise the planning board, zoning board of appeals.
That's the whole, yeah, that's what we're
But-
trying to
but
do
it-
right now.
There was a lot of pushback, like we don't want to be regulated. So I think that was what happened, but the trees, because there used to be a Department of Conservation, which meant forestry, everybody thought that the Conservation Commission would be about trees, and that would be safe. So it did become a lot about trees. But at the same time, the garden club is kind of pissed. So they've done a tree program. Anyway, I won't go on about that. I see the Conservation Commission as having a broad mandate, the water. I mean, air, we're not worried about too much right now. And the soil.
Yeah, but there's things with the air too, you know, there's,
There's
transportation,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
mass transportation, there's electric vehicles, there's, charging stations,
that's
there's,
right.
there's all kinds of.
Well, the energy piece, which we're not mentioning.
We can mention that. I mean, that's definitely, I think that's part of the larger, it's okay to,
Yeah.
one of the things that has been talked about is, would it make sense for the energy committee to be part of the Conservation Commission? If we're getting into this subcommittee kind of format, there isn't an off limits.
Well, weatherization and what the municipality has been doing, and Nancy's programs, library programs, which should be posted on the Wet Town website. All the other towns can use those. Look at them, they're fantastic programs.
We have shared them before on the town website. I don't know for
They
sure that
just
they're not.
stay.
I believe, I don't know for sure that they're not on the town
Anyway.
website, but that would be fun.
You-
Dave is actually overseeing the Siemens project too. So he's, which is the energy,
Oh, yeah.
he can explain it better than I, but
We basically did efficiency upgrades to the whole town.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the town has done a lot.
Geothermal, all the lighting, building envelope, new heating systems, new heat pumps in most, a lot of the different places. We
Yeah.
upgraded a lot.
Well,
We did all that last year.
it's been great, and it somehow needs to be part of this, at least for information. So trees, I grew up in some pretty hot places in the summer, and I don't want to get hot, I want shade trees, and I think they're beautiful, so I thought, well, I'm losing my memory, I'm losing my eyesight, but I just want to work on trees, so that's kind of where I am. I really love solid waste too.
me too. Okay, Barb.
And I don't really think I want to be on the committee, but I want to come to the meetings, so.
Well, that's perfect. You're an honorary member for life anyway, so.
My name is Barb Olin. I live in Hardin Ave. We've lived here since 1985, 4, something like that. And I'm nothing professional as far as environment, but I consider myself an environmentalist, and I'm a master gardener, and I'm very concerned about the water, our water quality, and the fact that our climate's going to be getting wetter and wetter and warmer and warmer. And one of the, in regards to the trees, I want to make sure that if we're anything moving forward, we're planting trees that can handle the future, with
It's a good point.
not just historic trees that we've always had, but like
The
It can handle the
phrase is
pressures.
climate adaptive species.
climate adaptive species is what it is. But I'm also, since I live in Hardin Avenue near the top of Hart, the water that comes off Mount Batty in these storms are just
Insane.
crazy.
I'm on the other side.
Yeah,
I run by
and-
your house every day almost, and it's insane.
And so it's just, I just know it needs to be handled, and that's why I'm just here. Something we need to learn more about.
Beavers.
I don't know.
I'm
Beaver
partly
dams on Mount
serious.
Batty, I don't know.
No, I think it's too steep, but
Yeah.
but I think beaver management for water places might be helpful.
Like Lincolnville.
Yeah.
Keep the water there.
I wanted to say too, to your point, Barb, that the tree list that the street tree people here have been working on, we pulled a lot, I pulled a lot of, I pulled a specifically native street tree list from Wild Seed Project, which is a nonprofit organization down in Portland. You've probably heard of them, or you may have heard of them.
Yep.
They've done a lot of work with this sort of thing, and the street tree list actually does look at you know, climate change and global warming and what species that, you know, are sort of adapting or moving north or whatever. So they're included actually in the list that we put together.
I mean, that's some of the things that we need help with, and we can have long conversations about that, you know, about fine tuning this, you know, as we move forward. I mean, we're really just trying to get some trees on the ground. This is
Yeah.
kind of getting over it.
This is the learning year.
Right, and then we'll all be able to talk about lessons learned and things we can do different, what we're missing, and
Right.
that's all part of it. That's what we'll have fun doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Nancy.
Well, my name is Nancy Jenkins, and I can see that Mount Betty is very well represented here because I live on McGutticook Street, and we're all getting drained by Mount Betty. I'm a relic of the Energy and Sustainability Committee, which hasn't met in what, I think 2 years, is that right?
No, they had a meeting the
More
other day,
recently than that, a little bit.
Well, in any case, and Beatty says she's getting, she's losing her eyesight and losing her mind, and I'm losing my hearing, so I'm used to situations like
Oh,
this because I can't hear what anybody is saying. I have to go back and listen to the recording to figure things out. But my biggest concern about the town where I was born and raised is something that I think should be a subcommittee of the Conservation Committee, and that has to do with development or lack of development. And I think we're reaching a critical point all up and down the coast of Maine. I see this in Lincolnville with this discussion of that enormous pier, that private pier that somebody wants to build out just south of Lincolnville Beach, and the whole town is in an uproar over it. With some people saying, well, it's private property, they can do what they want, and other people saying, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I think it's time for all of us to say, wait a minute, where do we want to be 50 years down the road? What kind of town do we want our children and grandchildren to grow up in? And I think it relates very directly to conservation because it has to do with the conservation of open land, with the conservation of the waterfront, with access to all of these things for everybody in the town. And I can see us moving toward a situation such as we see to the south of us in Maine, where a lot of it gets closed off and set aside for people who can afford to pay for the access to it. So I don't know. I mean, I'm all for growing trees and I'm all for figuring out where the stormwater is going, particularly off the mountain. But I think what my biggest concern is really is the direction of development. In other words, I don't like to see this kind of piecemeal development where Lyman Morse is given permission to do this and somebody else comes in and says, well, you gave permission to Lyman Morse to do that, so why can't we do this? And then all of a sudden, we've got a waterfront that is covered with tourist enterprises and uninteresting to anybody but tourists, and we've lost a central factor that has always made this town what it is. So that's my concern, and I don't know whether it fits in with the Conservation Commission or not, but I'm happy to do anything if there's anything for me to do. It doesn't require me listening to somebody because I'm better with the written word than I am with the spoken word.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's overlap with some of that with the Conservation Commission. There's also,
Well, the energy part really directly relates to it, I think, because
certainly, yeah.
in developing, you want to make sure that these energy concerns are required. That's one of the things that got me fired up a little bit last year was when I listened to the presentation of Lyman and Morse to the, I guess it was the planning board for the project that they have going over there. And nowhere did anybody ask them about the sources or the detritus, let's say, of that very energy consuming activity that they pursue. Everything from the kind of paint they use to what they do with it at the end to the kind of energy that's involved in drawing people into that rather massive restaurant project they've got going now too. I think these are questions that need to be asked. Anytime anybody comes before any board asking for permission, we need to say, what are your sources for energy and how sustainable are they?
Yeah, so just quickly, that was one of the reasons I,
Sorry.
Go for it.
The Lyman Morris
What?
I work there.
process.
Oh, you do?
It was before Lyman Morris, and I don't know anything about that.
Well, let's try to just have one conversation at a time, just. Hey, let's just,
Yeah.
we do have to probably be careful about getting off on, hold on. We probably have to be careful about getting off on tangents, because I'd love to talk about all this stuff all day too. Do you just want to say something quickly,
I
Rudy?
just
and
wanted
then-
to say something about Lyman Morris, but rather the people. who-
Well, I don't mean
and
to
I
pick on
know
Lyman Morris, it's just the
was
most
that-
immediate
that-
example.
That there was a lot of toxicity there and people died.
There was what?
There was a lot of toxicity in their work when you work. with
Well, there is
plastic.
inevitably in their activity
Yeah,
because they're
and
engaged in
people-
building fiberglass.
So, okay, so real quick, that there, things like, one that would apply to that would be like our ordinances about sea level rise and shoreland zoning. There were a number of things that Lyman Morris actually said that they had, and we really, Lyman Morris is going above and beyond many of the things in our zoning ordinance as well, but there are things in our zoning ordinance that are actually preventing them from doing things like building higher. And that's a more complicated thing, but one thing that the Conservation Commission might do would be to recommend to the planning board that site plan review include different points of criteria. So right now, site plan review is required by the planning board for new commercial structures that are above more than 1,000 square feet. For example, that they don't do any kind of site plan review for residential buildings. And there are only certain criteria that are included. So they're only allowed to ask certain questions. And so one of the things at some point the Conservation Commission might do is say, for projects that are within X number of feet of a wetland that's mapped out in our system, it would require a review by, in some places, it's by the Conservation Commission, for example. So those are the types of things that Conservation Commission sort of typically might get involved in, certainly patterns of development, changes to ordinances like the subdivision ordinance and things like that. But anyway, moving on to a couple of our people who are joining us by Zoom. Do you want to go, Ray? Ray has lots of experience joining us from he's the longtime chair of the Parks and Rec Committee, and lots of overlap probably here. So go ahead, Ray. Oh,
Unmute.
oh, can't hear you. Doesn't look like, I'm going to ask to unmute. Here we go.
Let me try it again. Hear me
There
now?
we go. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I am Ray Andersen. I've been in Camden since 2006. My wife and I moved up here from Connecticut, and about a half an hour ago, we just arrived back from visiting family down in Connecticut. I think my relevant experience for this committee is that I have been for more than 10 years now the president of Mary Spring Nature Center. The other piece of experience is for about 8 years or so, I had also been chairman of the Parks and Rec Committee. So I am very familiar with the town's properties that are managed by the Park Rec Committee, by the Parks and Rec Department. And the pieces of interest I have in this committee, one, and Rebecca has worked closely with Mary Spring on a 5-year project that we are undertaking about trying to rid our property or control it somewhat of invasive species. And I think that is an ongoing issue, not just in Camden, but across the state of Maine. And it's something that I think should be done here in Camden. I believe that it would be under the purview of the Conservation Commission to save some of our native species by eliminating or trying to control as much as possible some of the invasive species that are now here in mid-coast Maine. And the other thing is the section you have in here about historic natural areas and everything. Mary Spring fits into that, and that we had an archaeological survey done recently that an archaeologist detected a site where Revolutionary soldiers were, or soldiers may be the revolutionary group, was camped out there in the Revolutionary War. And also there's an old stone wall basement that belonged to one of the original Hosmer family. So it's has some reason. I'm not sure if the Conservation Commission is the proper area for that concern, or the Historic Committee. But
Yep.
I did notice in the write-up here, or in the instructions, about the historic part. So
Yeah,
that's-
I thought that was interesting too, when I saw that in the comprehensive plan, the mention of that, the inventory of historic
right.
places, and it's not just, post 1900, but really early stuff. And the comprehensive plan committee had put that under both the Historic Resources Committee and the Conservation Commission, which I thought was interesting. So
Good.
Thanks for reading that, Ray.
Yeah.
Great. David.
Well, greetings, everybody. My name is David Kibby, and it's really a pleasure and honor to be here. You all have such tremendous experience and knowledge. But I think what really impresses me is that you're thinking about 7 generations ahead. And I'm certainly trying to do that myself, and live in a way that not only conserves, but protects and repairs much of the damage that the human environment has created for the more natural, inclusive environment. I grew up in Ohio, but I spent much of my life in New England. I went to Harvard. I went to Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland. I'm a retired family physician and health information technology consultant. I did my internship in family medicine in 1980, back in those days, in Portland. So I have some experience in Maine, and I recently moved here from North Carolina. This will be my 3rd summer. I bought a piece of property in that almost, I think, is a notorious subdivision in Camden, known as Greenfield. But it's a really interesting habitat, and it is the site of the old Hooper estate. It was known as Hill Acres in roughly 1900, 1905, when he built this. He was the architect from Fall River who designed the Camden Library, I believe, and he built this enormous structure almost in my backyard, near the top of Chestnut Street. And it's a long story how this got to be a subdivision, but basically he was the person who bought 5 small farms that were these 38 acres. I have 0.75 acres, and I'm creating a urban farm garden and native habitat on that land. I'm focusing a great deal on native species of shrubs and plants and trees. As I mentioned before, a significant part of what I've been working on is water management. And I think that's probably native species and the education about them, and the advocacy for planting native species is one of the areas that I'm very interested in. There's so many people here who know so much about that. I'm really a new learner, but also I'm very interested in water management. I mean, in the 2.5, 3 years that I've lived here, it does seem to me that we have some challenges that relate to, mother water. And not only climate change, but certainly development. We have a minor problem in the development that I live in with respect to water, but it could become a major problem. And probably whoever's downstream from us is already, you mentioned, Allison, Belmont is already occasionally flooded from that water. It's flooded in the trench ditch in front of my yard. It's for 3 or 4 months, it's been flooded. That water's not moving. And so I think that if that's something that I could be involved in, I'd be very happy to. I'm not particularly interested in trees. I mean, I love trees, and I volunteer to work on the chestnut tree efforts in this area, but I don't want to put a lot of my time into activities involved with trees. However, I will end by saying that I'm going to have a linden tree planted in my front yard. To my knowledge, it will be the only linden tree on Linden Lane. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, that's great.
May I ask an off-topic question?
Sure, real
I
quick.
want to know if Dr. Kibby is related to the Dr. Kibby who was sort of the town pediatrician in the 1950s in Camden.
The answer is yes, because all the Kibbys are related.
Okay.
And Jeannie, I haven't done the work, and I haven't met the people to connect up the dots yet. But yeah, the Kibbys lived in Maine and New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and a very old family. So yeah, we're all related somehow. I understand that pediatrician was quite a character too.
He was indeed.
Yeah. If you know of any relatives who I could get in contact with, I'd be glad to know that information.
Okay, so I think one of the things that the select board talked about and very much agreed needed to be a priority for the town, and hopefully with the help of the Conservation Commission, is to do a better job of compiling all of the past work that's been done. I'm going to pull up what we have for a GIS database, because we've been doing some work on this, and a lot of people don't know that this exists actually. If you go to here, I'm gonna actually help everybody get here from the beginning. Has everybody here been to this site before or not?
No,
Okay.
It's really exceptional. It's quite I was really impressed at it. I spent a couple hours working on it.
Oh, that's great. So it's a work in progress, but so I'm just going to go, whoops, that is my other thing that I go to a lot, which is the Camden Herald Archives. It thought I was trying to go there. So you go, let me move some of this stuff out of the way. And you go down to department assessing, and then online assessing data. Wow, I agree. And I went for most of my life without knowing that this existed. But it's not everything that the town has inventory, but it's a lot of it. And it's kind of the first thing that town staff and others go to a lot of the time. Real estate agents use it a lot. But it's a pretty comprehensive database of all of the parcels in town. And so if you zoom in a bit, a little bit more, you'll get to zoom in more, and it'll load the parcels, hopefully. So over here, property map. I don't know why might need to close out of a few more tabs here. I don't know why the parcel lines aren't loading, of course, right now.
I think if you just keep zooming in, it'll get more and more detailed. Oops.
Give it a second to catch up here. Normally would have done that by now. Well, that's kind of strange. This normally doesn't happen. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
So you can click on any of these and it will give you the information about the property. You can go, we have 2 different sets of property cards here. And this is the middle school, for example. It basically, tells you some basic facts about the building. A lot of the time it will give you the layout. It'll tell you what year it changed hands. All kinds of things like that. Then you can go over here. You can change the base map. Let's see, let this person back in. If you want to get the best quality imagery that we have available, it's under this local tab here. And then either one of these 2019 regional imagery layers. I think one's done at one time a year, one's done at another. And it's really pretty impressive what's available. There is some stuff that it appears a Conservation Commission in the past did. There is some wetland. Oh, I don't know what's going on here. Something's echoing now. I might need to mute somebody, but there's some wetland mapping that's happened and haven't been able, I would love to talk to whoever did some of this. I'm going to turn this back off so we can see the, but there was some really extensive like small stream mapping that happened, and it's not, it must have been done by somebody that actually went out and, some of it needs to be fixed a little bit. There are some broken lines, and that's some of what we've been working on, is improving this database, but a really good start was had.
Allison?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I think those broken lines on the blue streams, are they really like drainage ditches? And I think, because there's one right behind our property, where the line ends is where it goes into a culvert.
Oh yeah, and in some cases that's true. And in some cases it's just like there are just some little broken lines. But one of the things that we've been working on a lot with a couple of interns, and Dave and I have been doing it too, is and with this company CAI that we work with, is a drainage map, not just of the surface water, but of the underground drainage system in town. So for years and years, it's all been based on memory, institutional knowledge of, okay, this catch basin goes here, this goes here. And when Rick Seibel, the public works director for years and years, he's getting ready to retire, and that's Dave took over for him, but Rick has still been continuing on. It's been a good opportunity to try to take, all of that knowledge and get it digitized. And we hired a company that did a lot of it. Rick's been filling in some, and then we've had some interns and just filling in, going around to every catch basin, taking a picture of it, marking the condition of it. We also have a company that has been cleaning the catch basins, but the town's really, really behind on cleaning a lot of them. And they can actually use this app and pull it up at each catch basin and mark off if it's been cleaned. They mark the condition of it. And so this is something that is going to be really helpful, because a lot of the time when and that's Brett, looks like that's coming in now. So this will be perfect. Brett's been helping us with the tree app and also with the stormwater app. So he really understands
Hey, Allison?
Yeah.
Allison, This is Keith Blizzard. I was on mute the whole meeting, and then I redialed in, and now I can be heard. But I'd like to help out with the trees, and that's kind of I won't bore people with all that, but I'd like to focus on that on the tree conservation team, and curious to see the data that we digitized this winter, how that's displayed on the GIS.
You're just in time, Keith. We're gonna show it.
Yeah, we're gonna do that, but we're still just going over the end here of the rest of the Conservation Commission stuff, too.
Okay.
So one of the things that I'd like to have the commission look at, or subcommittees of it, or however that ends up being, is looking at the different layers that are already available, looking at what the comprehensive plan mentions, different parts of town that have specific, like really important soils or important farmland, things like that. Going through the existing work that's already been done and figuring out which things are really important to have in this digital database, so that when somebody like the planning board or the planning department or public works director is going in and saying, okay, somebody wants to do this over here, what is that going to impact? Where does the water come from? Where does the water go? What kind of soils are here? Is this an appropriate place for more housing density? Could more septic systems go here? Are the soil's not going to be good for that? So there's a lot of stuff that's in here already, like we're working on the sewer map being mapped out. There's a bedrock map thing. Some of this is maybe a little bit old and hasn't been updated recently. But if you spend a little bit of time on this site here, it's a really good resource that I think can be improved to help us sort of do things better in the future. BD?
Well, as you say, the maps that I was familiar with, we did a soil map, we did wetland map, those wet spaces. And we derived them from state maps and probably things that you have access to.
Yeah,
anyway.
they're all, there's two different sources.
Yeah.
UC Davis has the best one, but the Natural Resource Conservation Service has another one. There's like Web Soil Survey, and then the other one is like the Web Survey or the Survey. But it's like they're almost the exact same name. It's kind of close, but anyway.
But
But the one that
scale-
Davis did
The
is more
scale was
user-based.
pretty small of the soil map.
Oh, no, you can get them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we
You
have
just
like,
type in your address and whoop,
yeah,
there's your soil
yeah.
map.
So that's good.
That's been digitized for the country at this point, which is amazing.
Is there
Yeah,
is there a legend for this map? Because the one thing I couldn't find was an explanation of the different colors.
yeah, so sometimes, and that's a good point. Like if you click on
Okay.
over here, in some cases it expands and you can see, but one of the things that is not so good, for example, is if you look at our zoning map, and you do that, you see these are all the zones in town, but it doesn't even have, it just has the abbreviations. It doesn't have it doesn't have anything else. And so when you're going to say, oh, well, I don't know, is it, the VE, we're going to be approving, they're constantly putting these zoning changes in front of us. And then you go to look at it and it's hard. You also can't select like specific zones. So if I want to say, okay, well, I don't know, can I support more housing density in the village extension district? How am I going to figure that out? Well, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to be like, oh, maybe if I pull up another document, I can figure out what that's VE, but then all the colors kind of mix together a little bit. And it would be nice to have them be selectable. So you could say, okay, well, I want to highlight just all the properties that are in the village extension district. And then, ideally have a link as part of that layer that would tell you about that zone. And there are towns that do this really well. And it seems like a simple thing or a trivial thing, but when you're going to make decisions about, how is this change going to impact this part of town? it can really slow you down when you can't figure out which part of town you're talking about. So, little things like everybody rolls their eyes at me, but we have this really great resource. And I think even just having a group of us get together and, have a running document of changes that need to be made, would be a really useful task for the town. Another thing that with an intern on right now, and Ray, I'm thinking of you, and maybe you could help look over this before it gets published, is a college GIS intern is working on mapping out all of the public access points, all of the town-owned parks and like harbor access points, so that you could go over here and say, okay, where are all the harbor access points? And you could click on that, things like that. But that's sort of just for everybody to get their feet wet. We're missing some people today. So my hope is that we can continue to look over that document a little bit more, play around with the town website, give the others that aren't here today a chance to watch and think. And we can kind of use the rest of the time right now to go over, hand things over to Dave and Brett to talk about the much awaited tree app. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here.
Well, we're still in the sort of technical and the transition of the creating the concept, recreating. You say like how long the selection process will be, like, I looked up online, it's like I'm gonna say it's the first, it's probably the third, I don't know, it's like a Wednesday evening that we meet, or at least that's what has been.
Oh, that's a good
historically,
point.
kind of what is the role from a just pure functionality standpoint? Are we gonna meet monthly, bi-weekly? The original date that's been published in the past.
Yeah, so those are all, that is all a little bit flexible. Generally, it's, the official Conservation Commission meets monthly. And I would imagine that we would stick with that, but maybe smaller groups would meet more often. This is not an area of strength for me, sort of just the organizing part of it. So pretty soon we should have somebody volunteer to be kind of in charge of things. I see right now that we're in a little bit of a transition period while everybody decides sort of what their role might be. In terms of final selections, that is the part that's always made me, and I think some of the other select board members, the most uncomfortable. This, like, you're in, you're out, because I think we don't want to do that. We want to be inclusive and figure out how, what it means to be a conservation commission member, what it means to be a, just wanting to work on the tree subgroup or the watershed mapping subgroup, or, and I don't have the answers to that necessarily. I would prefer to spend maybe a couple more meetings sort of talking about that, and maybe that means we need to meet more regularly to talk about that.
That's a good idea. I think, it will coalesce more and more as we meet more and more. We'll get better ideas and more ideas from other people, more input from other people, and be able to create something very.
Yeah, I think what we want to definitely make sure that we can do is figure out a way right away that the tree stuff can move forward, and that can be done in a way that that Dave feels comfortable with. And we'd want to avoid, when you get all these different groups, one of the problems that we've had in the past is this, like, roles and responsibilities, and whether directing town staff versus being directed by town staff. We do have a lot going on in town, and everybody's time, is sort of precious. So we need to make sure that the way that the tree group moves forward is done in a way that is helpful to Dave and doesn't create extra work. So we don't want to have like squabbling on the side about why did this tree go there and that tree didn't go there, and I don't like the master tree list that we came up with, and all of that stuff. We want to, limit the amount of time that Dave would have to spend, sorting things out in the sidelines. And so I think that's part of what can sort of be established here in the, Conservation Commission level. Like, okay, these are the next steps. Dave's going to work with this group.
I think initially we really need to be, now Brett's gonna go over kind of the app and how it works, but one of the things that we need to task almost immediately is identifying potential tree locations. That's like one of the very first things, because we have on June, actually,
So-
May 9th, I have trees coming in.
So do we want to set a next meeting right now for the overall Conservation Commission and then let it, before we go into the tree stuff? I
That
think,
would be helpful.
Dude,
for
I have to
Yeah.
leave, so I'd
Yeah.
love to know if you're going to meet again.
right, yeah, exactly. Bringing it back to the, do we want to try to meet in 2 weeks, or do we want to go for a month?
I think 2 weeks would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Should take us to the 9th of May.
I will not be there on the 9th of May. I have the plant sale on the 13th and 14th, and I live, eat, and breathe the Union Fairgrounds and plant sale that week. I have
Oh,
no time,
May 4th.
so.
Maybe, what is the
That's 3 weeks now.
professional or best practice way of going about setting meeting times that work for the largest number of people?
Oh, I don't have.
I'm not, there are people that aren't here tonight.
August in for 3 weeks, that's halfway between. Monday's good.
Should we set, I'm just wondering if we should task somebody here with sort of polling the group, or there are a couple of people who aren't here today that I think will be really great.
And they're not here because of the meeting time, you mean?
Right.
How about we, this first time, we send a doodle poll out for something within, less than 2 weeks to 2 weeks, and see what we can, and then we'll have a list, and then someone else can do it like the next meeting maybe. I don't think everybody here has a.
There's computer programs that you can use.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I
would just hesitate to exclude the same people again inadvertently. So I think that would be,
Yeah, because I don't think everybody here knows all the other people.
Oh, I know.
We haven't established a list. So maybe we'll establish a running list. We'll send out an invite, and we'll try and narrow it down with as many people who can attend that meeting. That'll be the next meeting date. And then at that meeting, we'll all have a list of the people that are inclusive of this, and then someone else could take that role of the meetings.
right, and then ultimately we need to have a standing meeting time.
Yeah. But initially, until we get rolling.
How about?
Yeah.
I mean, for two weeks from this Wednesday. That way, if people had a problem with Monday, we can.
I think that all in theory sounds great. This meeting room is occasionally in use.
We'll find that out the very first one. And I'll get the room reserved, and we'll send out the doodle poll, and we'll try and get as many people as close to, I think is less than 2 weeks okay? Is that the time frame?
Yeah, I'm not gonna be here until
Even
the
before?
16th.
Until the 16th,
Oh,
okay.
you're not gonna be here at all. until
Well, I'm gonna be present around and about the time, but I will not be at a meeting until, unless it starts on the 16th or later.
Oh,
I am
16th or later.
Completely booked.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I thought you were saying.
That's fine. I'm not being, and I'll be, I can get the catch up list.
All right, well, we'll send out a doodle poll and get as many people as we can.
Mhm.
I don't think we could do it.
I mean, I think there are some smaller groups maybe too that we could work with, like just going over the GIS database or, yeah,
We'll send the poll out and we'll bring Brett on.
perfect. Yeah, Brett is on and he can start sharing. His video and microphone are turned off, but,
Hey, Alison, everyone else.
hi, Brett.
Hi. My name is Brett Whiteley. I work at CAI Technologies. We are the town's GIS consultant. I think I've had a conversation, I heard Keith Blizzard on the phone. Keith and I have emailed back and forth. And Keith provided me, let me see if I can share my screen. Keith provided me with a Google spreadsheet of the existing trees in town, which I geocoded to the address points from the E911 office, and have points now for 2,026 trees in town.
So that all comes from the 1994-95 Camden Community Forest Management Plan, just so everybody knows. That's where this comes from.
1994?
Yeah, it was a complete study of all the trees, all the large shade trees in town. So part of what we're doing and part of what we're gonna need volunteers to do is validate all these trees. A lot of them still exist. And it makes it a lot easier because Brett's gonna show you, when you click one of these dots, it's gonna pull up that physical location. And then you can look at the imagery, which is kind of a picture of the tree. And then you move that dot into that tree location and validate it's still there. It could be a stump, and then there'll be a pull down, a drop down, and it'll show you this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so as Dave was saying, this we geocoded this to the property address. So a lot of these trees from that database they came across as an address. So they've been kind of put in place on top of a house, which obviously they aren't sitting in someone's dining room. But I can switch out my
But this was the easiest way to get all the information.
yeah, to pull it across from a Google spreadsheet into, and so now we've got these green points sitting on top of an aerial, and this data can be edited both on a desktop application and on a mobile app for iOS or Android called Field Maps, and I can switch across to that in a second. But each of these points, if I was to identify on this, its address as it came across in the database given to me was 19 Pearl. That's all I had to work with. So that's put that in the place on top of that building, right? And so that's going to need to be essentially moved and put into its correct location.
So I'm gonna just say that, and I don't know if everybody understands, but like the dot is here, you can see the tree is here. You just drag it, move it over, and then look at the information about the tree and say, yeah, that's the tree. And then it'll change color once you do that. Then we'll know we validated it.
This satellite or whatever it is very recent.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How recent is it?
2019.
So there could be some, like, one of
We've
the,
already lost trees.
we'll probably go to some locations and say, okay, here's a dot, but there's no tree there. So then you'll go to the drop down and say it's a stump. And that may become a potential tree planting location. That's how it's gonna work.
So this is sort of discussing some of the tasks, one of the tasks for a volunteer.
Exactly.
And so also because these trees have all been geocoded to an address, some of them have been stacked on top of each other. And there's a town center. These are ones that couldn't be located. Put them all at the intersection. We kind of assumed Camden Main was, but others, as there could be 9 potential trees clustered in this. And so we've got 9 trees that the software thinks are at 13 Pearl. And each of these are going to need to be looked at and then moved. And then once they're moved, we're going to change location verified from no using the drop down to yes. And then once we submit that, the metric's going to change. We see 11 there now. So we go across, we get to the next one, which will be is a maple tree. We can see all the attributes. Fortunately, we don't have a whole lot for this tree. It's a sugar maple at 13 Pearl, and we can move that location. Sorry, mouse is backwards.
So I'm gonna just, one of the, you might be saying, why are we doing this? Well, we want to know what our tree inventory is. We want to know how diverse the tree inventory is. We want to know how much shade cover we have in the town. How much are we losing? how much are we gaining? And these are all metrics that we're trying to follow in order to plan. So we know how many trees we need to plant, we know how much we need to keep up with. So, and we can also like determine how much shade these trees are offering based on their age and how many, and where we want to be in respect to the shade. So those are all like little things that this will help us do.
Right, and so, yeah, I mean, once we get the DBH, we'll be able to calculate out based on species, how much shade coverage we have and where the coverage was and where it's lacking. So, you know, as I zoom in and out, and we can generate heat maps off of this, my cluster points are gonna change. And the other thing we wanted to look at was the tree health, David. And we said we were going to be doing inspections on that when they're out in a related table. And if I connect my phone to that, I can show this.
So this, what Brett's talking about now is the tree health. We can look at a tree from a management perspective of maintaining trees. And we can look and say, okay, last year we pruned this tree or we cabled it. What are we going to be doing this year? And then you track the health of the tree based on the amount of work that you perform on it. And then you'll reach a point where you'll say, okay, this tree's had a lot of nursing along. We might need to cut this tree at this point. So that will help us with that.
And there are a couple other big questions this will help us answer. One is tree equity, making sure that all sections of town are getting equal number of trees planted each year, not just kind of the high visible, high end streets or people in the know. Secondly, it will help us figure out our diversity. I did a couple simple pie charts, and I think the town is at risk of some unknown disease that will move up the coast, like the ash borer is going to impact town. And we've got a lot of maples. We just need more diversity to mitigate our risk and for just viewing. It's just like you can have so many maples, but let's bring in some other trees to kind of make it the more interesting perspective. And it also, I think this map will serve three different groups. It will serve kind of the curious resident who wants to know what type of tree they have out front or up in the street. There are great examples out in other towns that have this, that show what the tree is actually, how the tree is benefiting the community as far as CO2 sequestration, stormwater, other benefits. So people can start understanding the value that this tree is delivering to their immediate environment, helping their asthmatic kid breathe a little easier. So there's a group like Curiosity that will help Dave's group kind of plan and know that, next year we need to put in X trees, and the year after that Y, and the year after that Z. I've kind of been saying that we have a dearth of tree planting, and we need to kind of do a catch up in a smart way. Can't do it all at once, but we need. This will help us develop a 5-10 year planning plan.
When you're budgeting too, I mean, you like presenting to the select board or the budget committee, you want to say, hey, look, this is what we did. This is what we're going to do next year, and this is what we need to do. So people have a visual perspective of what we've accomplished and what we need to plan for. And you can budget the money that way. You need something.
Yeah, you could, in front of the select board, show a sequential year plan and say, here's where we are now, and then click next year. You see a little more coverage, a little more better tree health, and just walk them through probably 3 to 5 years out, and people can understand where this is going.
Exactly.
Do you want to talk a tiny bit about your role as a tree warden, Dave? Just how this shade tree ordinance that we have, and probably not everybody knows.
So the town has a shade tree ordinance, and basically it protects all the trees within the right of way. They're the town trees. They're just like part of the infrastructure. They're like part of the stormwater system, or they're like part of the sewer system. They're assets of the town, and they serve a function, and they're protected by the town.
Now, what's the right of way? Can you explain that concept real quick?
So the right of way is a defined space within, usually from the center line of the road to the boundary of the property. And it's property that's in essence owned by the town or controlled by the town. And
Usually beyond,
it can be, it's usually beyond the grass. So people think, oh, my property kind of begins like right at the road. So I cede up to the road and that's my property. It's really not that. It can be well beyond the grassy area or the shoulder, or, you know, it can go pretty close into your front yard sometimes, depending on where you're at. But it's a defined area. Each road has a spec or measurement. And that defines clearly the right of way. So anything within the right of way are for the assets of the town, for planning, for sewer, stormwater, sidewalks, road, and trees. And the shade tree ordinance protects those trees, just like the sewer ordinance protects the sewer. So people can't just go and cut a tree down in the right of way. I mean, it's a town asset. They need to seek permission from the tree warden. Tree warden will go and look the tree over, and if the tree isn't diseased or causing a hazard, you know, there's no reason for that tree to come down. They can't cut it down at that point. You cut a tree down.
And that's the biggest, single-handed, biggest misunderstanding or challenge for the tree team, because this concept is not very well understood across America. That there's probably 15 to 20 feet of your property that's not yours, and the town for public good can use it, and that's a head scratcher for, I'd say, 90% of the people, including me at one time. I'm like, what?
definitely.
Part of the Conservation Commission, you know, I mean, I'm not saying this is what we have to do, but it's a good thing to inform people and educate people that, you know, this right of way exists and it's for the common good of everybody.
Right, it might even be for future expanded stormwater options, to identify places where we're gonna use this part of the right of way for bioswales instead of letting people build stone walls right up to, the sidewalk or
I have a
something.
question, how do you find people?
We've done it. I mean, we find.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we find three people within the past 6 months, and one of them was, how much was the fine? It was a lot.
Just say steep.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was more than they wanted to pay.
But how do you contact?
So I'll give you an example. I was notified that an area had been cut illegally, and I went in and the shade tree ordinance defines a fine for cutting a tree down and a fine for removing limbs off the tree.
How do you find people when you have a tree location and you know the address and you know the name of the people? What do you do to get a hold of them?
Oh, I usually go knock on their door.
And if they're not home?
I will come back and knock on the door again, or I'll write an email, or, I'll contact them.
Do you have emails?
In some cases.
I'll find who they are. I'll come over here to the code office. We'll pull up their data. I have information on, their phone number.
They have
Sometimes.
contact
Yeah.
information, not just address, not just mailing address. They have something else that people will notice.
Well, usually they've hired a company to come and do something. So a lot of the time it will just
No, but
be,
if we're trying to find people who we want to place a tree.
Oh.
That is the big problem, and I want that to be understood.
Oh, you're talking from planting perspective?
Yeah.
Being able to contact people?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant from the finance perspective. So you're losing me there. So I generally, if someone's cut the tree down, I usually can find them. That means they've been around.
You want to find so-and-so at such and such.
So
Well,
find,
the tax maps or the tax information, because,
yeah,
Yeah.
we have a lot of obviously seasonal, they own two
There are
houses.
people who
or
just
whatever.
own houses and are never there.
Okay, when that happens, right, so they own many, many houses, but whatever, so the point being, they're still on record as paying, as taxpayers
What
of the
kind
town,
of
so.
contact information?
They always have an address, a physical address to mail the tax bill.
yeah, it's in the town database. It's a public
Yeah,
thing.
That's all.
And that, well, and yeah.
yeah, I mean, we're gonna probably run into some hard ones, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
but I bet
I
you,
have run into very hard ones.
sure. I mean, I know what you're saying. I've been looking for right of ways from people to put in a sidewalk, and for people didn't even exist, or they gave the property to
No,
a family
it's
member.
gone, it's somewhere else.
And we're gonna run into that, but that's gonna be the
Minority.
smaller part. You gotta focus on the big part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeannie's a good, for if you have a specific trouble person that you're trying to find,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
usually the best.
Yeah, geez. good.
So,
Dave, I have one more quick question.
Mhm.
Oh, is there a place, maybe on the website, maybe Allison can answer this as well? How, for instance, how can I find out what the right of way is at my house, for instance?
so you call me and
Okay.
I would probably, I'll do three things. I'll look at what's defined as what the right of way is from the center line. And then I'll measure from the center line out, and then I'll look at your boundary lines. A lot of times those will correlate. And then I'll look at the GIS system. So I'll look at all three of those forms of information. And if they all line up to being in the same spot, that's generally where it is.
Okay, yeah, but sometimes we know and sometimes we don't know.
Sometimes it takes more.
But you can look in the town system
But you did
first.
it with an app really quickly in front of my house.
I did.
But he
that's
didn't know
only-
for sure.
That's only one form of data that I use. I'll use known measurements of the width of the road,
Yeah.
which is usually measured from the center line out. So I'll divide the width of the
It's
road
gonna
by
be
two.
horrible for you.
It's part of his job
What
like
I
every
do.
day.
It's gonna become second nature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I do. Yeah. Anyway.
Well,
Brett,
also,
you gotta let
as
Brett-
individual homeowners, you have your survey from your purchase.
Yeah, but it's not
Every
always-
house has to have a survey.
They don't always line up, Keith. Right away can go beyond the survey.
Oh, then,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, my survey lays it out pretty clearly as far as
Oh,
like
yeah.
property line
You're a
and
minority.
It does, like I said, sometimes it does.
Maybe we can use you for all of Chestnut Street.
Well, I'll give you, there's
no,
a place
'cause I
on.
know it's a squirrely line moving up and down, but
Right.
yeah.
I mean, it sometimes depends on
surveyors-
whether the people object or not. A lot of the time it's just done, like, we think it's about here, we're gonna plant the tree here. I mean,
I think we want to start with the
Yeah,
people that want a tree in their yard. I think is where we want to start. We have
There's plenty of those.
I was gonna say, we have 50 trees to plant this year. Let's focus on the low hanging fruit and let's focus
Wow,
on
it'd
the lion's share in the month. And then as we get really good at this and we planted trees everywhere through town, we'll start focusing on the exceptions to the rule, you know.
the
Right.
forced tree planting that.
We have so much low hanging fruit that I don't think
Right.
we're gonna run into the
We have
hard.
to talk about stumps.
This is Ray. I have a question about the map of the trees. Does the inventory include the current health status of the trees in a general term? Or is it just,
That is an attribute. Brett will go over that real quickly.
because I know like on what you have up on the map right now, 7 Eaton Avenue, the beautiful old tree right in the front yard there, but that is cabled and at some point in time, that is going to be coming down.
So part of what we're gonna need volunteers for is when they go and do that validation of the tree location,
Mhm.
the drop-down menu will ask for the health of the tree. And that's one of the questions,
Right, okay.
all right?
Is that
Hey,
something
hey,
a volunteer
Brett,
can do?
Brett, is
Well,
this
they're-
something we can look at on our own screens at home?
Yes, you can. David will have to get you credentials to sign into it.
So what we want to do is we want to first get the people who are volunteering to help with the tree effort. And then once we get those people, then we're gonna do a little bit more formal training with the app and go over it once, probably go out in the field and do it a little bit. And then get people really familiar with it, and then we'll be off and running. That's kind of how we're gonna do that. So I think Brett's got to kind of get a few things done here. He's got something he has to do, so we probably should let him continue with so Brett, where are we at on the app? I mean, you were gonna go over maybe potential locations.
Yeah, so we've got potential locations. We can take a tree inspection. You and I were playing just before this meeting. We noticed that condition should say, oh, it does. There's one thing where it's mislabeled. So if this is on an existing tree. Let me just jump back out so that I can. So we're talking about that one on 7 Eaton, right?
Yep.
And we can look at the existing attributes that were in that database. Is not a whole lot. We know it's a pine. We've got its address. It's inventory date 1984. There's not a lot of information in there right now. We can go and take an inspection when we're out there looking at it. We can say that its condition is, say, good. And if there are any existing hazards on that tree, and I forget where this list came from, David, there was a specific.
Brett, we had a link showing what those hazards are. Remember the photo of the tree?
Yeah, it's not working great in this field application. We can have it on the desktop, but yeah, it's a shortfall of this really easy to use mobile app. But yeah, so we can choose one of these hazards, and we can record up to 10 different hazards. And then once we submit it, that becomes a record associated to that tree. And then you'll be able to go back in time and look at the inspections on a tree and see its health over time. As well as focus, if you need to, any tree maintenance work on, problematic trees. And then we can also, if you identify, oh, there's a gap in the tree cover here, we can add a potential tree. So where the point is where it's going to be created, add a point, it makes a little star. And then, this is where the attribute was wrong. Planting, right. It should say good, bad, excellent, and it just says present or not present. The reason saying present, not present, we can say potential species. We've got a list of all the existing trees you've got in town. And then whether there's a sidewalk, sewer, water, underground power are present or not present. So, the limitations of that planting potential location. And then once I hit done and submit, that then becomes a record in a field, in a table that David or administration can look at and see, we should maybe order so many trees, and this is where they're likely to go.
That's going to really help us with the first round of trees. So this function right here, Keith knows about it, but we need to kind of go out and mark out basically 38 locations initially in the spring, because that's what we have on order. And then we're going to order the rest of the remaining 50 to make up 50 in the fall. So the difference would be what we order in the fall. So we really need to get these locations identified.
Does this have water lines and electric lines?
Yep.
Because I can't see it.
Yeah, it does. You can pick water lines. What are the attributes, Brett? Water lines, sewer lines, slope, overhead power.
On the planting potential?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's power lines, sidewalks, sewer, water, underground power.
How are they going to know that when they're?
Well, the overhead power, the underground power we probably would know when we did the dig safe for the tree.
I mean, a lot of that can just be left blank unless it becomes a known.
Right.
No.
I mean, this isn't this isn't going to be an absolute thing. There's going to be times when you're going to get to a point where I can't answer this, and that's okay.
Right.
We just have to do the best with this tool as we can. But we got to remember what's the purpose of this? This purpose is to identify locations, potential locations to plant more trees. That's really what you're really going to focus on. And we got to go back and fine tune it a little after. You come to me and say, I couldn't figure out this, and we'll figure it out. This isn't, this isn't life or death here. This is whatever you're going to do to help me with this is going to be beneficial. I mean, it's really getting comfortable doing it and being part of the effort is what's going to be helpful. Because the more people I have out there doing it, the more successful it's going to be, because I can't do all of these things.
So the idea would be you'll be able to say, okay, crew, today we're going to plant trees at these 7 places. So pull up this, you'll send them a link and you'll say, these 3 or 5 things that are highlighted, and they'll be able to say, okay, it's right here. We know exactly where it needs to be planted, and we can do these 4 today.
Right. What we'll do is we'll Nick or one of the guys on the crew will pull up the app. They'll look on the phone and they say, all right, we can plant maybe 5 trees this week or next week. And he'll go out and he'll mark out 5 locations called Dig Safe. He'll mark them all out, make sure that there's no problem with digging in that location, or know what hazards we have associated with digging that location. And then, once they dig safe it, then he'll just go out and plant these trees that have been identified in the app in those locations. It's gonna be that simple. It's gonna happen just like that.
Will
If you guys are-
volunteers be asking, will they be able to say, okay, we've talked to the property owner and they're all, you know, everybody's happy. This is a, like, is there like a check mark that can be put next to something like beyond? Okay, like there's one thing to say, a group went out and identified that this might be a good spot for a tree. And then an extra level that would be like contact made with property owner supportive, good to go, like so that you would know when no additional action needs to be taken.
I mean, that would be another thing we'd have to put in there, Brett, right? Like
Yep.
Another check that would say, property owner's is okay with this whole
We don't have to
idea.
have any sign off on it.
Well, I mean, that is one thing that actually Nancy had recommended, having something that
Just an MOU or something.
we have a sign off, maybe we could sign off, and then that would be the trigger to put that, to click the box saying, yeah, it's all been okay. We could do something along those lines.
I mean, keeping in mind that we actually don't need permissions to,
Well, that's the thing, I mean,
like, I don't want to, I don't know, it's a,
Add another layer that, you know.
You just don't want people sabotaging what you just did.
Yeah, they're gonna have to.
we want to plan what people want first, you know.
What Garden Club does is they give the property owners a stake and they put them where they want it to be.
Sure, working with the property owner is part of what this is all gonna be, right? You're gonna identify the location, but I'm expecting that there'll be some interaction with the people and explaining the benefit of the tree and why we want it here, and if they're okay with it, maybe will you be willing to water it, you know, and these kinds of things, and then that'll be helpful in the effort.
So how, do you have people designated to do this, the GIS corrections or?
Well, that's part of what we're trying to recruit. Keith, you have some people that you said were really tech savvy and wanted to
How
do this,
many
right?
people are you talking?
Yeah, I've got three tech savvy young women in their 30s and 40s. Two are environmentalists. One's a graphic designer. They've done this before. They could do this in their sleep, and I think I can get 6 people overnight to give a couple hours of their time walking the streets doing this.
Perfect. And we're looking for as many people as we can that want to do this, because it's, and as many people as we can get is gonna be better,
Well, I was wondering about,
because there's a lot of work to do.
putting people in twos partly because, or at least going back, because some people are good at entering information and some of us know what the trees are like.
Maybe what-
exactly, yeah,
maybe
I
what
mean,
we
like
do,
the
yeah.
condition of the tree and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it's, I mean, I can enter things into my phone, but I don't really want to say like that tree has a this or that necessarily.
Maybe pairing people up with a tech savvy person and a experienced person, let's say, with maybe, you know, talking with people and identifying the tree and those kinds of things. That'll be, well, we can figure that out as we move along.
What's your goal for getting this piece done? Can you have these trees coming in early June?
Well, Keith, we're gonna want to start identifying tree locations immediately with the tech savvy people, I think.
And the non-tech savvy people.
Right, so we gotta get both people together somehow, so.
So,
Yeah, but I think with
the tree people.
I think we could prioritize areas too, that there's some no-brainer areas that are in need of trees, and that could gobble up 38 trees pretty quickly.
I think this first round is gonna be
Yeah.
easy. It really is, because we have so
You
many.
know, Elm Street needs trees, Union Street, all the major streets could there be 10 or 12 tree spots in all the streets that would, you wouldn't need any sophisticated technology to identify those. But
Right, and then we have
Nice.
some tree planting locations just based on stumps. You know, and we also have some town projects where we took trees out that we want to put trees in, like.
It's like that Bayview Street project, there's trees supposed to go back in there, I mean, that's maybe a whole separate.
They're planning on those,
They're
yeah.
gonna-
It would be great if you could do some stuff with the Washington Street sidewalk.
Washington Street sidewalks, another one, Cobb Hill Road, where
Oh, I mean, there are lots.
we're not gonna have a problem planting 50 trees this year.
Right.
I don't know about Cobb.
That's out of town.
Oh, well, there are some town-owned properties that are,
Yeah, but.
no, there were just a bunch of trees that got
So
decimated.
someone went in and cut a whole bunch of trees along the brook.
There's a pedestrian
Bridge,
crossing.
yeah.
I know what you're saying, that it's not really like street trees, but there is one spot that's really like a pedestrian walkway through from the Cobb Hill subdivision to Eames Terrace.
Because the subdivisions in the out of town will eat all the trees.
No,
Oh, yeah.
This is
No,
all,
this is a special spot.
This is a
Yeah.
special situation,
When
yeah.
you saw it, you go, oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
so you know what I'm talking about?
I drive by it multiple times a day.
Yeah, so it got cleared out, and we really want to shade the brook, so maybe like a tree there would be
Was it a
good.
mistake?
Very political.
It's done. They need a tree.
It wasn't a,
Okay.
You know, it would have been a
nobody
good thing
here
for
was
the.
responsible, we'll just say that.
Nobody here was responsible. Yeah,
So anyway, we have plenty of spots.
But no one's been found responsible for it yet.
well, no, we know how it happened.
But,
Um,
can we say something about stumps? Because I have a theory of stumps that you dig them out, but you can't put the tree there because it's right underneath. You can't just put soil. A lot of people think you could. So you have to move over to the side to put your tree. You can leave your stump covered up with soil, you can compost it, but you can't put your tree there. So do we know this?
I mean,
I
at
do.
least we experimented at my house. We
Well, I
planted
mean,
a tree.
We planted a tree, we ground the stump, I mean, I've looked into this, you can't, but you have to remove,
Dave has a competing theory that that's the perfect place for it.
yeah, because that was where the tree was.
Yeah, but that wood doesn't break down and the tree
We-
has to fight its way.
We removed it. So
Yeah, but
we,
you don't go deep enough.
oh no, we did,
They did.
we did, that's the thing, it was work, we had to, I mean, but we,
How far down did you go?
I bet they went.
3 feet,
Three?
3 feet, and we got the base of the root ball out, and then some of the little
Now, Are
leaders.
you gonna be doing that with all the stumps in town?
Well, in some cases, we will have to, because that would be the only good spot for the tree.
Okay, so at least 3 feet down.
It depends on how big the root is.
Yeah, but if it's big honkers that have come down recently.
But the thing is, it's a lot of the time, it's like, that's actually where it makes sense, because all the other places, there are power
Of course it
lines, or there's
is,
this and
but
that,
if
and
the
we,
tree doesn't survive
Oh.
well there.
It will.
check out
It
my
depends.
tree. And the,
Every situation is different.
I mean, yeah, and not, it's probably, my stump was kind of degraded.
I think
already.
That's another factor.
A woodpecker had done some pre,
That stump was
excavation.
this big, and we
Yeah.
ground it all up. It was gone. We took all the sawdust out. We put new fill and new earth and loam and compost mixture, and
It can.
yeah, we don't want that to be the model for every
Yeah.
tree that gets
Sounds
planted.
heroic.
we did that at several locations.
Okay, all right, as long as you're gonna be heroic.
It's not my preferred method. It's a lot of work.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you have that choice, and then there's the other choice of putting it.
I would rather put it right next to it if the space is there.
All right, so why don't we try to, we can definitely even stay and just keep chatting about this afterwards, but making full use of Brett's time here for the next
Yeah.
5 minutes or so.
Sure.
Sure. I don't know what else to show you folks though. I see my phone is disconnected from the app. Yeah. I think we're having a follow-up kind of focused training session. Is that correct, David?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm happy to show, I was playing, I don't know if you guys saw that while you were talking. I was just playing around with the app, verifying or looking at locations, how to move the points. All the data, is there and can be filtered down further by species if we needed to. The only thing that I was when I jumped in on this call, you guys were talking, and this has been sitting for a while now, so I hope it's still responsive. Andersen, you were looking at the zoning data.
Oh, yeah, could you fix that?
I can. I need some information from you, though, of course.
Yeah,
If you
sure,
did this-
yes.
If you hit this little next feature, it's going to show you the zone as well as any attributes that are in that shape file. So we can potentially put more information at your fingertips.
Yeah, just the full name and, oh, that's already, yeah, okay.
It's in there?
I was
Well,
saying,
it's not in there right now, but this is just a zone VE. This is a zone RU1. But
How are you selecting that?
using the identify button.
Okay. But you can't do it, no, that's because in some cases it's like just clicking on one section of the V of something doesn't highlight all the sections. So it'll tell you what.
Yeah, sure. So you want to know where all
Yeah, like, because if you're going to be making a change to a certain zone, you want to highlight all of those. But if you just click over, the coastal residential, for example, that's Sagamore Farm, but it's also
Sure.
Sherman's Cove, and they're not always touching.
Yeah.
So it's like
there is,
So if
this hasn't been, there is an extension to Access GIS where you can, let me clear this all out, where you can do a query, say, from your assessment and look at your zone equals R2. And then
you're logged into the staff.
I'm logged in. I'm in a different, and I should have clarified that. I've jumped out into Old Orchard Beach, and they have this a staff site with what we call advanced queries.
Oh.
So I can do a query from the assessment table on, where the zone is R2, for instance, and then I can bury down from there. I can switch to buildings, and if they've got AC or number of bedrooms or assessed value, number of.
Oh, wow. Hold on. So this is an option that Old Orchard Beach has that we don't have.
Yeah, that's right. And then
How much does that cost?
So this is now, these are all the properties that are R2, which have 3 bathrooms. And
Yeah,
there's a
that would
map
be
that's
nice.
generated.
That there were when the energy committee was trying to see all the different properties in town, it was like impossible to know which ones had, furnaces or didn't, or so is this what extra level of service would we have to, are we talking $20,000 a year?
No, it's 1,000 or 2.
This has been the history
Also
of Camden's decision making. This is how we're saving money. It's like $1,000 here or there by not having major features enabled.
Right. And also it obviously depends on the data that you've got coming out of your so we've got use, we've got zones. It looks like a lot of it could be brought across into that query. Old Orchard Beach have taken it a little bit further. Got license types and permit types.
Right, that's what we're upgrading things to get it so that all of our permitting is going to be online, and we're working in that direction, supposedly.
Right, and I know I've been working with them a little bit, and they're trying to their vacation rentals and how many times a fire department is responding to seasonal rentals as opposed to year-round owners.
Oh, wow. We're here or in Old Orchard?
In Old Orchard.
I was going to say.
Yeah, to justify increasing licensing fees.
Yeah, that's the kind of data that's really useful, because all we're doing all the time is just speculating and remembering and.
Right.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah. So
maybe at some point it would be good to.
When you were talking, my ears picked up, and I thought, let me just show this to you quickly. But
thank you.
The easiest thing to do also is to put additional details in that zoning.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And some clients.
Right. Just have it actually be the name instead of the acronym. But at some point, Brett, it might be good to have. I know you guys do a lot of stuff in other places. Just to have you come to one of our meetings and show us some things that other towns are doing that might be conservation sort of related or useful. Because then then we can use the commission to advocate to the select board or whoever else, the budget committee to, do some of those things here.
Right. And so the thing that jumps out at me right now is a piece of software called iNaturalist. And went out and collected information, not just trees, but bird sightings and all the flora and fauna. And they have quite an extensive database on iNaturalist that we tied into.
Oh, wow. I never thought of that.
Yeah, I think it was.
That's what I'm looking at. iNaturalist and then from more specialized is the IMAP invasives, and that's another software tool. It's not invasives just for terrestrial plant species, which happens to be my specialty, but it's also for emerald ash borer, it's for Asian longhorn beetle, it's for what's it, Camelot adelgid.
Brown tail moth.
You can put brown tail. So it's called IMAP invasives. So it is used in both in Canada as well as in the United States, and so it's several provinces. So I love that, but it would be a great way to be able to fuse. So I say this because obviously I wear the conservation hat. So IMAP Natural should be the other go-to conservation-based app / GIS database. But it'd be great if we could fuse that into the town.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about that. I'm super tech stupid.
He's
I
a
can use
person.
it, but
I mean, he would be the person to ask.
so ways to be able
He says they
to
do
cross-reference that data and be able to upload it. That would be amazing. So I mean.
Yeah, right. So this was done. We did it in Bedford, New York, and we got a data dump from them from iNaturalist. We can update on whenever they want to update it. They've got a tool they can run to update, just like you do for Access GIS, the property ownership information. And so all the observations can be seen. It could be sorted. But
That's awesome.
That's so
standard.
cool.
And then the thing that I kind of really liked as well is they had pollinator pathways. And so these are properties designated as pollinator friendly.
Is what friendly?
Pollinator. Yeah. So just kind of neat islands of conservation, directed towards pollinators. So it's just something to think about.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
If we could just get there's so many people that have collected so much information and there's so much out there. If we could get it in one place that was easy to access, I just feel like things would be better.
It's always
What's nice
the
about
case.
this is it lasts forever. It's pretty much gonna last, it's not like on someone's computer.
Right.
Right.
That's what happens to this information. Somebody has a great idea and does all this work and it ends up on someone's computer or on a book.
Look at this. So this is just a quick thing that we should digitize. And if you have a chance, this is all of Nancy Cottle Johnson did these amazing community forest management plans and street tree inventories. And it's all, I love just going through the basement here and looking at the filing cabinets and looking for old things. And there's just so much really good quality planning that's already happened. I mean, this is like natural disaster preparedness for the community forest. What should public works be trained in, after disasters with trees? What can we do to?
But what's
just
amazing
so much good stuff.
is
but nobody ever sees it because it's in
Allison
a cabinet.
found it. Keith put it in a digestible form. Brett put it in the GIS system. So that binder right there is
The
actually
red one?
both.
Not all of them, only
a good chunk of
the inventory.
The
Oh,
inventory.
nice.
But there's also
Yeah.
just really good stuff. Like if some of this
Emerald
stuff
ash
could
borer
link.
stuff was all put in there. I mean, the emerald tree inventory, the ash tree was put in there too.
That's awesome.
Right, and just, if we could just digitize the rest of the, in some cases, the plan that was made in 1994 is really pretty darn close to what the town should be doing right now.
Yeah,
So. That's all.
well, that's
Keep
awesome.
it going
Brett.
on. Thank you, Brett.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna sign off.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna show
just be
you
in
guys
touch.
what it looks like on the phone.
Do we want to schedule the follow-up for the tree
Sure.
volunteer training?
So this is
Dave?
basically.
I wanna do
I think this is what you do.
I can't see much.
So Dave, just real quick, before Brett has to go, do we need Brett for the
Oh, no,
tree?
I thought Brett was, yeah.
Do we for scheduling the tree.
Training, I'll
Training.
send you an email, Brett, because we have to coordinate with some of the people on the Heath has.
Okay,
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett, for
Thanks.
making that time. I
Welcome.
really appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you.
Bye. Sure, Andersen. Bye.
So, I think that we go.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the live stream now because I think the meeting is.
Yeah.
Are we ready to officially call it to an end and have the rest be just side conversations?
Sounds good.
Um,